to Why We Do What We Do Mini. I'm your host, Abraham.
And I'm your host, Shane.
We are in the spooky month of October, but this is our first year of doing bite-sized mini episodes, and so it occurred to us we need to think of how we want to approach this for the month of October, and the idea we landed on, at least for this year, maybe all future years, is like, let's just unpack a phobia. Let's take a phobia and unpack that. I'm like, that makes a lot of sense, right? Like a mini is a quick turn into some topic, and most phobias specifically have like a quick description of what they are, and I was like, that's perfect. So here we are talking about clowns.
For those of you who are afraid of clowns, I'm sure that you're not thrilled that we're talking about this. But before we get into the clown piece, I do think it's important to understand, because this is the first time we're doing minis about phobias. I know we did we do an episode on phobias before?
I don't remember. I don't think we have.
We did either. Okay, so then let's unpack this real quick, just for the sake of, if this is the first mini and the first time that we're unpacking phobias. A phobia is an anxiety disorder type of thing that causes an extreme, irrational, and persistent fear of an object, place, situation, feeling, or animal. Sometimes numbers, sometimes circumstances, a lot of things, sometimes long words. The phobia word for the fear of long words is one of the longest words in the English language, which is just, I feel like it's cruel to make somebody say that. So we are unpacking kind of like this general anxiety about specific things. And today our phobia is fear. Or no, not fear. I'm just kidding. Clowns. I've got fear on the brain because we just recorded fear. It's clowns. Yeah. Clowns are the scary thing.
This is also called Coulrophobia. If you want to show off your trivia knowledge, or someone's like, oh, what is Coulrophobia? That's what the official name for the fear of clowns are. But of course, why is this even a thing? Clowns aren't supposed to be scary, but one of the greatest books in history made clowns enemy number one. Not really, but if you know the story.
But still, they're scary. Pennywise is scary.
Pennywise is scary. But yeah, Coulrophobia, fear of clowns, even though they're not supposed to be a thing that's scary. So what's going on here?
Well, so what's interesting is coulrophobia didn't really begin to emerge as a formal term until the 1990s. So actually, that timeline matches really well with it coming out.
Fair point.
If you think about it, like that actually, like Tim Curry's It was in the, mid to late 80s, right? Or early 90s. It was early 90s. So like coulrophobia didn't really start showing up. Yeah, so it didn't start showing up until the 90s, the late 90s even. So
okay. One of the first tracks on an early Between the Buried and Me album is Coulrophobia, is what it's called.
Oh yeah. Is that on Silent Circus?
Yes.
That's a good album. I like that one.
That was impressive that you got that quickly.
I was like thinking about it. I was like, it makes sense that it would be in Silent Circus if it is Coulrophobia. Yeah. But also I loved that album a lot. That's one of my favorites.
Yeah. It's good. All right. Yeah. So why is it called this thing? And particularly, why are we coming up with names like this in the 1990s? Because people are going to keep doing that. But
sure.
Coulro or Coulra is Greek for stilt walkers, which I think we could assume were way scarier than clowns. These like 15, 20 feet tall people.
Yeah, way scarier. Like people that are taller than me already freak me out. So like stilt walkers for sure. It's a whole thing. So
you are very tall.
I am very tall, but when people are taller than me, I've had the experience recently where I've met people who are like a couple inches taller than me, and it like unnerves me. And then I went and I go, wait, do people feel like this around me? And it's very upsetting to think that I unnerve people because I'm taller than them.
Oh.
So who experiences coulrophobia? Well, about 1 in 10 adults have a fear of clowns. Not maybe like severe, like this high level, but like there is a strong dislike for clowns. So I feel like there maybe should be a support group for clowns and dentists to get together, because you feel like they're like two professions that people seem to not like at all or get a bad rap, but they do like pretty decent things.
They're like actually just trying to help.
That's all it is. There's very few clowns that are trying to harm people, and we'll talk about one later. But there are very few clowns that are trying to harm people, and so I don't know. Maybe it only takes one. Like I guess maybe that's why people don't like dentists, because of Dr. Giggles. If you remember that movie.
Hold on, when did Killer Clowns from Outer Space come out?
That was for sure the 80s.
Okay.
Yeah. So I guess that's fair too. Turning people into cotton candy. That's probably not a great thought. So one study found that 10 out of 1,000 children that were in a hospital setting were terrified of clowns that were brought into the hospital to cheer them up. So think about this for a second. Like you're a clown and you're like, hey, kids, I know you're not feeling well. I'm coming to bring you some balloon animals and maybe even spray you with a flower that squirts water on my shirt. Isn't that cute? And they're like, there are these kids that are sick that are like, I would rather be anywhere else than see whatever it is you have to offer me. You are the worst. And they're like, I'm just coming to cheer you up.
Like, I already feel terrible. Why are you torturing me?
Well, this is worse.
Fun math fact, 10 out of 1,000 is also 1 out of 100.
Yeah. That's what the study said. So I just went with that. But yes, 1 out of 100. Yes.
That's fine. I was just like, there's probably an easier way to say that, but okay.
Yeah.
It would make sense. People who are at a greater risk for anxiety disorders or phobic disorders are more likely to experience a fear of clowns. And that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So how does it happen? Well, there are a lot of ways it can happen, but we won't know how it happens until these ads play.
All right. We're talking about how it happens, and I guess to an extent why it happens, because we are a podcast called Why We Do What We Do.
Yeah.
There are some things to consider around clowns that I think sort of do inherently lend themselves to, I guess, a presentation that could be of sort of evoke fear. And one is that is the makeup aspect of clowns. Makeup masks a person's facial features. It can distort facial expressions, and this can lead to feelings of distrust or unease since you're unable to recognize the person and see them for who they are. Generally speaking, when we see differently formed bodies in it all, that can be something that we don't know how to react to when we're very young. In particular, if someone is born with limb differences, like that initially can be a little scary because we're just not used to seeing it. And then when we see someone who has been traumatically injured in a way that has them be disfigured, that can be really hard to see because we don't like seeing trauma come to other human beings when we're normal.
Right.
I guess people who do enjoy seeing trauma come to other human beings, please go turn yourselves in immediately. But the rest of us do not enjoy that. And so, like, even though sometimes those are congenital or they're done just to be sort of fun, I think just because of sort of the novelty of it, the strangeness of it, it can be off-putting for some people who just aren't used to seeing it.
Right, absolutely. And you think about like clown makeup. Yeah, we'll talk about it more later. But a lot of the costumes are also a little bit exaggerated as well. Like, you've got really big feet, big shoes, like big hands, and it's kind of like
giant
just like
nose.
Giant red nose, like a lot of like distortions of features, which can be very, very unsettling for people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Some other situations, you might have traumatic experiences related to clowns. I think of like those old like movies that depict when, adults are a lot taller than kids and they say things that are not necessarily nefarious, but they say it in a tone that the kid interprets as nefarious. Like I think of like a clown leaning in, like, it's one of those shots where the camera's looking up at the clown and the clown's really tall and the clown's leaning in and going, "Don't you want a pie in your face, kid?" or something like that. Something like really ridiculous and over exaggerated, which is like meant to be fun, but the kid interprets it as kind of, bad. So like the traumatic experience might not be something that was actually like a bad event. It might just be an interpretation of like some event, or it could be an actual traumatic event that happened with a clown.
Or when the clown leans over and says, "We all float down here. You'll float too."
You'll float too. Yeah, it's like that would scare me. No thanks.
That would definitely scare me. Genes do not cause phobias. However, some people may be more prone to being afraid of things such as clowns due to genetic things that could be related to mental health and mental health conditions. So you could have genetic conditions that exacerbate mental health conditions in general. And again, people then are more prone to fear-like things, could be more prone to being afraid of things such as clowns and the way that they appear.
Right. Some people may learn that clowns are scary or dangerous or whatever just based on languaging.
Yeah.
Somebody who's never experienced a clown or never been around a clown, if all you've ever heard your entire life are that clowns are scary, clowns are terrifying, clowns are dangerous, I'm afraid of clowns, then the first time you meet a clown, you're going to be like, "Oh, this is the thing they were talking about. I got to run."
Yes.
Like it makes sense. Like sometimes you might set a rule before you even meet a clown.
Very much so. Yeah, I think people could make a big deal out of it, and sort of someone who I think is maybe charismatic and persuasive, who's talking about how they're afraid of clowns, then other people can hear them and say, yes, you are right. Clowns are scary. I believe the things that you say because I like you as a person.
Right.
And so then they see a clown, they're like, oh, I remember, I'm supposed to feel fear now.
Right.
Or at least behave that way. And that could actually then sort of eventually morph into a real tangible fear. Or someone who's like, I want to have a thing. I'm going to say I'm afraid of clowns because then I have a thing, and people could be like, that's his thing. He's afraid of clowns, and that's his thing. And I'm like, I have a thing now. Yeah, and that can also be a way that develops. People like having a thing. Something I've wanted to unpack more on this show is the tendency to want to have a thing. Yeah, the thing that's your thing specifically, and that people sort of know you for that thing.
A characteristic,
Exactly. All right. When people see that clown and your friend told you should run away from that clown, you're like, okay, friend, I'll believe you. I'm going to run away from that clown. We feel the other things that we feel when we feel phobias, which is we breathe fast. We have increased heart rate. We might have profuse sweating and the sort of terror feeling of wanting to escape. We could even experience nausea or trembling. Our heart's going to race. Our pupils are going to dilate. See our episode on fear that we just released, talking about all those symptoms and how they happen. But that is what'll happen.
Yep. And, there's no set diagnostic criterion for this. You can't go in the DSM and find coulrophobia. So you can't really get formally diagnosed with it. But you've got it if you have the above symptoms when you see pictures of clowns or avoid parties or do things that last, like these like really kind of egregious symptoms that last for more than 6 months.
Yes.
So like that might be more of an anxiety disorder or a panic disorder or something along those lines rather than just calling it like you can't get diagnosed with coulrophobia. You might get diagnosed with something else.
Yes. All right. A couple other quick, interesting tidbits before we wrap up on this. Now, traditionally, clown makeup is applied beginning with white face. However, it does not have to be white. That's just sort of a common trope.
Right.
Other colors that are added include red, blues, blacks. They're kind of going for a vibranty colored sort of thing.
Yes.
Painted gestures, if you will.
Yep.
These are used to paint on the nose, eyebrows, and mouth. These can be standard or they can be grossly exaggerated. Oftentimes, they will paint on a big smile, the idea being that it's sort of got a cartoonish grin on it. Of course, that can always look very confusing and distorted and weird, depending on how it's done, like the Joker.
Yeah.
In some cases, you can use other tones. For Augusta the Clown, who has a pink or flesh tone base, you can go the tramp style clown, which includes a lot of black and has a gray beard. Generally speaking, the features are sort of rounded and soft, though again, they're kind of trying to look like a cartoon come to life in a way.
Yeah. And I think a really important feature that you're going to find in most kind of innocuous clowns is that all of the ways they paint on all of the features are very rounded, very soft, very welcoming.
Yes.
And this is really important when we talk about, the next little bit. So I imagine you're here. If you listen to podcasts, I imagine part of the reason you listen to podcasts is because you maybe like some true crime. Well, here's the little true crime that we're going to insert into this episode. John Wayne Gacy, was a serial killer and sex offender that is known for his portrayal as a clown. He was later called the Killer Clown because that was kind of a big part of his personality. He was a local clown and all that. But it's been reported that people were not particularly thrilled with his clown performances. They did not like his clown performances. He wasn't a very good clown. And you might go, well, why? Besides being a serial killer, the other part of this was...
That was why. It's because he kept killing people on stage.
He kept killing people. And they were like, I don't like this
show. This isn't very good. I'm not coming back.
Like, that's a lot of resources for this show. It seems like there's a lot of...
1-star review.
1-star review. No thanks. So part of the reason they didn't like his clown show, though, is because his makeup was not traditionally clown makeup. So he would do the white face and he would have all of the things that went along with it, but every bit of his makeup was pointed. So it was sharp edges, triangles, like everything was pointed and not rounded. And so it just made it so that it was even less welcoming than the more exaggerated features. When you watch The Joker with Joaquin Phoenix, his makeup is all very pointed. It's not rounded. It's smeared. It's pointed. It's very targeted compared to like the traditional clown makeup. And that's actually something people have noted is very uncomfortable to see.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we've run a little long for a mini. So, I mean, not super long. We're right about the time that we need to be. But I think that is what we have to say about clowns. We mentioned a bunch of clowns. There's Killer Clowns from Outer Space. There's It, or Pennywise. There's John Wayne Gacy. There's a bunch of places that you'll see all these clowns. And they're very scary. And that can be very fun or very scary. But that is coulrophobia, if you will.
Yep. That's it. We did it.
All right. Anything else you have to add to this one, Shane? I sort of wrapped us up there.
Be nice to the clowns.
Be nice. Yeah, there's still people who still go out and try to be clowns, and they're really just trying to be fun and bring some levity to situations.
They're trying to be joy bringers.
Yeah, they want to be playful. Oh, Fizbo, the clown from Modern Family.
There you go.
It's fun. Yeah. All right. Anyway, you can tell us about clowns. You can email us directly, info@wwd.podcast.com. You can also reach us on the social media platforms. Please leave us a rating and review, like, subscribe, tell a friend. And of course, if you join us on Patreon, I will read your name during our normal full-length episodes. But to keep these minis mini, I will not do that here. But we appreciate you very much, all of our patrons.
Yep.
Oh, and then of course, our recording schedule or our publishing schedule, we release minis every Monday. These are these small bite-sized 10 to 15-minute episodes, or in this case, like 17 minutes. Then we release our full-length deep dive topics on Wednesdays, and then for the month of October we will be doing all spooky themed things. All right, I think that's all the stuff that I have to say about this. This is Abraham.
This is Shane.
We're out.
Bye.
You've been listening to Why We Do What We Do. You can learn more about this and other episodes by going to www.wwdpodcast.com. Thanks for listening, and we hope you have an awesome day.